For Chanukah. We are learning Mishna Yevamos, Paragimel, chapter 3, Mishna Dalid, Mishna 4. Now, before we do the Mishnah, let's go through this chart a little bit so that we get a sense of what's going to be happening in the Mishnah. Now, the story of today's Mishnah is very similar to yesterday's Mishnah, and that again we have Rachel and Leah, right? Mm-hmm. Two women. Now, you notice that this time I have this arrow pointing downwards, because in the case of the Mishnah, these two women are related. Their relationship is either sisters, or mother and daughter, or grandmother and granddaughter. Either way, right, both of them, one man would not be able to marry both of them. But in this case, each one is going to be married to one of the, in this case, three brothers, right? Yesterday's Mishnah had four brothers. Today's Mishnah has three brothers. So you've got the three brothers. Two of them are married, each one to these women who are either sisters, or they are a mother and a daughter, or a grandmother and a granddaughter. Now, understandably, as somebody pointed out in yesterday's Mishnah, in this kind of a case where we're talking about, let's say, a mother and a daughter, it's a daughter from a different husband, not from these husbands that we're talking about now. Mm-hmm. Because if these were daughters of these husbands, there would be no question of yibum. If a man has a child, there's no yibum. So here we're talking about if the man is dying childless, it's because that daughter that we're talking about is not from him. So just to point that out from yesterday's Mishnah and today's Mishnah. Okay, so you've got the situation where you've got these two women, and they are, again, in some way related to each other, and they marry two brothers. Now, the two brothers die. The two brothers die. So now, being that these two women, the two brothers die, and now both women fall to Yibam, to Levi, right? Levi is the surviving brothers. Both of these are his sister-in-laws. Both of them died without children. And they're both now, as we say, falling to Levi, getting connected to Levi for Yibam. So the halacha is that Levi can't do Yibam on any of them. Because if he does Yibam on one, then that one is either the sister or daughter or mother or grandmother or granddaughter to the other one. And therefore, as we've been learning until now, to go ahead and do Yibam on the relative of your Zekuka, to do Yibam on to marry the relative of the woman that is connected to you for Yibam, is like a relative of your wife. It's as if that she is your wife, and these people are a relative of your wife, and therefore you can't marry them. And therefore, the halacha is going to be that in this case, what does Levi do? Levi has to go ahead and do chalitza on both. They're not scot-free, because achai sekuka, this whole prohibition of not being able to do yibam on any one of them is midrabanan, it's rabbinic in nature. And therefore the Torah says that the bond is there. So if the bond is there, then you can't just let them go free. They got to do chalitza. But you can't do yibam because each one is the relative of the woman who is connected to for yibam. And therefore you can't do the actual yibam. Now, in the chart, I then have this line that goes from Rachel to Levi. Okay? Now, Levi again is a surviving brother. So now, I have this line, I have this open box, and on the top of it, it says erva, which means if let's say, like we had yesterday, if let's say Rachel is an erva to Levi, let's say Rachel is Levi's mother-in-law. Again, Rachel had a daughter that was not from the marriage that she had now to the man who died without children, because he died without children. So it's her daughter, but it's not the daughter of the man she was married to who died. And that daughter went and married his brother. Why not? He's allowed to. But now that daughter married his brother. But now what happens is that when the brother dies, meaning when Shimon dies, it comes out that his wife falls to Levi, but she's an erva, right? She's a murderer who's permitted to him as an erva. And a woman who is an erva to you, there is no yibam or chalitza. She has no connection of yibam to you. So in the situation we have here, where the two brothers die and one brother's left, and one of the wives is an erva to the surviving brother, which means she has no Yibum connection to him, then her other relative, the sister, daughter, granddaughter, or whatever it may be, isn't going to be a problem to do Yibum on for Levi, because she is not in any way the relative of the woman connected to him for Yibum, because Rachel isn't connected to him for Yibum. And therefore, he can go ahead and do Yibum on Leah. Okay? But if, like I have on the bottom, the reason why Rachel and Levi cannot get married is either because she is rabbinically forbidden to him, she's a rabbinic relative that you may not marry, rabbinically you may not marry that kind of relative, or her prohibition to Levi is because we are trying to protect the sanctity of the kahuna, meaning she's a woman who's forbidden to marry a Kohen, and therefore there's a prohibition, there's a Torah prohibition to marry her, but it's not an erva, doesn't carry any kind of death punishment with it. So therefore, there is still a connection for Yibum. And therefore, since there's still a connection for Yibum, again, Levi will not be able to Yibum even on Leah, because Leah is the sister or relative of Rachel who's connected to him for Yibum. He may not do Yibum on Rachel, but the connection of Yibum is still there. And therefore, meaning Rachel is still connected to Levi, and therefore Leah is going to be the relative of the woman connected to him. And therefore the halacha is going to be, as we're going to see, the halacha is then that there's chalitza and there's no yibum. There's going to be one extra part to this Mishnah that I didn't mention right now, but these are the cases that you need to know. All right, so here we go. Perek Gimel, Mishnah Dalet, Chapter 3, Mishnah 4. Shloisha Achin. You have three brothers. Shnai mehem nesuyin shtei achoyos. Two of them are married to two sisters. Or isha ubita, or to a woman. One is to a woman, and the other one is to her daughter. Or isha basbita, one is to a woman, and the other is to the daughter of her daughter. Or isha baspina, or a woman and the daughter of her son. Those can be the two relationships between these two women that were discussed, that are possible for this halacha. The halacha is both women receive chalitza and no yibum, because each one of them is the relative of the woman connected to him for yibum. Now, here's something new. But Rabbi Shimon Paiter, Rabbi Shimon exempts. That means, according to Rabbi Shimon, when both of these women fall to you for yibum and they have this relationship, they actually become exempt from yibum. We have been saying until now that a relative of the woman connected to you for yibum is a rabbinic prohibition. But according to Rabbi Shimon, it's not a rabbinic prohibition. It's a Torah prohibition. And it's a Torah prohibition like an erva. Meaning if these, in a regular case, by regular marriage, right, you're married to one of these women. The other one is, according to Torah, forbidden to you. Her sister, according to Torah law, is forbidden. Her daughter or granddaughter is forbidden to you according to Torah law. It's a real erva. So says Rabbi Shimon, when they become an erva through falling to yibum, meaning yibum now makes them connected to one man, because they're both now connected to yibum for him. According to Rabbi Shimon, the Torah considers them like an erva to the man, and there's no yibum whatsoever. There's no connection whatsoever. Because according to Rabbi Shimon, the zikuk, the connection of yibum, will be considered in this case like a Torah marriage, so that each one now is an erva. She's a woman that's forbidden as a woman who would carry a punishment of death. And therefore she's an erva, and there's no yibum whatsoever. So that's a new thing here in Reb Shimon. The Reb Shimon says that you could have such a thing, as a connection of yibum that will actually create a situation where the two women both of them become an erva to the man, and therefore there's no yibum whatsoever. You don't need yibum, you don't need chalitza, you're scot-free. Now, it's important to point out, this gets a little bit complicated, is that we had before a case where there were, remember, 4 brothers and 2 sisters, right? Now, in that situation, Reb Shimon did not say, in that situation, Reb Shimon did not say, scot-free. He didn't say that there, even though, again, both sisters are now falling to yibum together to both men. And therefore, why did Rabbi Shimon there say, well, 2 sisters falling to each man? It's like sisters, it's like you're married to each one, and each one of the other one's sister. You should be free from yibum chalitza. He didn't say that there. The answer is, now listen to this, it's very interesting. The answer is like this. There's two brothers there, right? And both women have a human connection to two men, right? One woman can't be married to two men. So therefore, Reb Shimon says you cannot consider them there as an erva. You can't consider them there as that they are your wife's sister, because each one is married to both men from the Yibam point, so to speak. They're both connected for Yibam. One woman can't be married to two men. So therefore, when there's two brothers, you can't consider them married to him. But if there's only one brother, and one man can have two wives, okay, according to Torah law. So therefore, when there's one man, there the human connection can be like a marriage to make both women like an actual erva. Very interesting. Let's move on. If one of these women was actually forbidden to the surviving brother as an erva, she's prohibited to him as an erva, she's a relative or married to her through a relative, that makes her an erva, again, a woman who cohabiting with carries a punishment of death. Asr ba mutabachaisa. You can't do yibam on her. She's forbidden to you because she's an erva, but her sister is permitted because of the fact that her sister is not the sister of the woman connected to you for yibam, because she's not connected to you for yibam. Now, isra mitzvah isra kedusha. If let's say the surviving brother is forbidden to one of the sisters, not because she's an erva, but because she is usher because of a mitzvah, meaning that's referred to someone who is usher to you because she's considered she's rabbinically prohibited as a relative or married to a relative, or yisr kedusha, or she can't marry the surviving brother because of a prohibition to uphold the sanctity of kahuna. That means she's only prohibited to you from the point of a law of prohibition, but there's no death punishment involved in cohabiting with her. Then we say chaltzas v'lemis yavmos. They both receive chalitza, but no yibam. There's no yibam because although you may not marry her and therefore may not do chalit, may not do yibam, but there's still the connection, the yibam connection there, and therefore since there's still yibam connection there, she needs chalitza to be freed. Okay, continuing now in the Chofetz Chaim's scenario of the person that you have spoken about and told others that he's not so smart, not so bright, not so wise, and how the Chofetz Chaim has said, look, if somebody would do that to you, you'd be very upset. So why doesn't it bother you when you say it to others? And then he says, okay. Now, when you now look carefully at this kind of situation, this kind of lashon hara is going to include many different aspects of the prohibition. Number one, machmas hamasaper, the one who is saying it, the one who is saying the other that so and so isn't so bright. If let's say you're going ahead and you're saying somebody did something wrong, right? The whole stress of in this kind of situation has been the fact that you're not saying anything wrong about the person. You didn't say he did anything wrong. So a person thinks that, okay, but I'm just saying equality. So the whole point of the Chofetz Chaim is to stress that if you're putting a person down because of lack of equality, that's lashon hara. Now he's saying that in certain ways, when you do that, it's worse than when you go ahead and say somebody did something wrong. Because sometimes when you say somebody did something wrong, although you're not allowed to say it, but you say it because it bothers you. Bothers you. You're not trying to get him. But it bothers you that he did something wrong. It hurts you that he did this wrong thing. And therefore you're kind of speaking out against it. Again, lashon hara it is, but your intention is not bad. It's not to hurt the person, and that in certain ways mitigates the severity of the sin. However, over here in this case, why are you saying he's not so bright? What are you doing it for? Typically, it's going to be because you're putting him down, and you just think it's not a big deal, and that the Chofetz Chaim says it's a very big deal. Now that's from the point of the person saying it. Now, what from the point of the person who is hearing the lashon hara, hearing what's being said, and possibly accepting what's being said? Because If you go ahead and you say somebody did a certain sin, a lot of times people aren't going to accept it right away. They're not going to accept so fast on a person that he sinned. They're going to say, maybe he didn't realize something else brought it up. So when you say it to people, they may either not accept it so fast or at least minimize it. And then if afterwards it comes out it was a lie, it wasn't true what you said about the person, and if you go in and say somebody did a sin and it comes out it wasn't true, or you exaggerated or whatever it may be, or you misrepresented the situation, you're going to look like a fool by people when you say that. But that's because in those cases, those hearing what you say don't accept it so fast. But when it comes to going ahead and talking about people and saying they're not so smart, unfortunately, people are not going to say, stop talking like that about the person. Stop putting him down. They're not going to do that so fast. Oh, he's not so bright. All right. They kind of take that very quickly, accept it very quickly. And at the end of the day, when that happens, it comes out that, as he says, why doesn't anybody say, what are you putting him down for? And it's like he didn't do anything wrong. And the truth is, of course, he has done very wrong. Because of the pasuk that says, a person eats and fills her mouth in the sense of a sin, and the person says, I didn't do anything wrong. So at the end of the day, when people immediately accept from you what you're saying, and they don't stand up against you and say you're doing something wrong, they're basically supporting what you do. And that's a problem. So the point is that when you're talking about this kind of Lashon Hara, both from the point of the person saying it, both from the part of the person accepting it, there are certain ways that it's going to be even worse than when you're hearing or speaking Lashon Hara to say somebody did something actually wrong. Have a wonderful day. Freilich Chanukah, wonderful Shabbos.
Thank you very much.